Welcome to the Southeast European Seminar Series from University College London. I'm Eric Gordy. I am sort of the coordinator of the series, but we try to do it more informally. Let me tell you, while we're still early on in the presentation, and I still have everybody's attention about some upcoming events that we have for this season. And I will say we have these events, but we don't have dates for these events yet. We're working on those, but those are going to be on our webpage. Yes, the recording will be on our webpage and on our YouTube channel as well afterward. Uh, so we will have Besa Hashani, a literary scholar who is going to be presenting on her research on the Albanian writer Ismail Kadare. We are planning and have nearly set a conversation that will be led by my colleague Diana Georgescu with Maria Todorova, the great historian. And later in the season, we have a panel on language and conflicts in and about language. So those are our upcoming events. And let me very, very briefly introduce the panelists that we have today. I'm not going to say a lot by way of introduction because this being an electronic event, you're all online and you can find out by Googling them. But let me introduce them in order of appearance. So we will first hear from Vera Mijojlić. She is the founder and director of the Southeast European Film Festival in Los Angeles, a journalist and a film critic. And I believe that she may also have some personal memories and recollections to share with us. Then we will hear from Sanjin Pejković, and Sanjin is associate professor of film studies at the University of Dalarna, concentrating on film and memory, film and representation of history. And I would add, not only for Southeast Europe, but he has written quite a lot about film traditions from other parts of the world as well. And I don't know whether it's necessary to introduce Sara Renar because all of you are lovers of music. So so you know her music, but she is a singer and songwriter based in Croatia. I can tell people my first encounter with Sara Renar was when she was playing a concert in Belgrade, opening for Ana Churchin. And I went to the bar to get a drink and ran into one of my former students there who was very surprised to see me there and complimented me on my excellent taste in music. Now, about this panel itself, we occasionally do these kind of memorial or commemorative events, not that often because we're a university. We're not a television station or an entertainment magazine, but we did a mini film festival for Bekim Fehmiu at the time when he passed. We had a discussion and panel on Ante Marković when he passed. So we do this sort of thing occasionally, and decided that it was a good idea to do it for Mira Furlan. And if I say that Mira Furlan is a symbol, this is maybe almost an offensive thing to say. It seems a bit reductive to call a person a symbol. She was not a symbol, she was a person. But I think in many ways that as a figure, she embodied for a lot of people a memory of a period in the history of Yugoslavia that offered a unique experience of creativity and of freedom. Also, I think that that she had a position that was really transformative in opening up the ways that gender was represented in a lot of popular culture, in film and in theater in Yugoslavia, where for a long time they were horribly constrained. So she's, I think, for a lot of people, at least of a particular generation and maybe beyond that, she represents good memories and the good times, and also bad times because of the conditions under which she left the country. Croatia had become independent, and she became the object of a vicious, scurrilous defamation campaign um, in one of the popular publications in Globus, in which they said all sorts of things about her. They said that she hated Croatia. They said that the reason that she hated Croatia was because her mother was Jewish. They said that she was insane, a drug addict, a prostitute, all of these sorts of things, leading to a campaign of intimidation against her that was intolerable. Uh, Recently, the person who was editor of the Globus at the time issued an apology for this campaign of defamation, but it was a strange apology. He said they sincerely apologized for this and the other campaigns that were led, in which, incidentally, in all of these campaigns, the targets were women, um, but then also made the observation or suggestion that people were malicious if they remembered them. Uh, so, uh, so there's an odd kind of tension still apparent there, almost 30 years later. But as a result of this campaign and the atmosphere of intimidation, Mira Furlan left the country, went to the United States, where she established another career in film and television and stage that is probably familiar to a lot of you. I won't talk about it, but I'd say that in this, she kind of served as a bridge of understanding for many people, an image, the only image of people from the region, a cultural translator, but I think a cultural translator of a unique type, because there are not a lot of people from the region who get any kind of meaningful visibility outside of the region and in large audience atmospheres like the United States. And most of the ones who do are figures like Emir Kusturica, Goran Bregović, that is, people whose principal job is refining and marketing stereotypes about the region, rather than a kind of creative engagement. So one of the things that I think we'll do here, I mean, there's definitely a sense that with the passing of Mira Furlan, an important part of memory has passed, uh, but maybe also a sense that there are fields of memory that have been opened. So that's the spirit in which I'd like to carry out this discussion. But I have talked enough, probably more than enough. Let's turn to our panelists and let's begin with Vera.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank Eric and the UCLA School of not UCLA, UCL. I'm sorry, School of Slavonic and East European Studies for organizing this tribute to Mira Furlan. I think I speak for a lot of people who felt the need to get together, and that's why I believe that there are so many who have registered for this seminar, because I think people need to revisit the issue in depth. Mira Furlan has sort of united us, and she does embody a sense of some community that we have all lost. So what we have lost is what this brought back to us, a lot of memories, and for me personally, because I lived through the same period, I remember that period very well, and I remember the campaign because at the time I lived in Belgrade. So I mean, obviously, I'm very familiar with the campaign against her and against anybody else who really decided to rise against nationalism and who tried to, preserve some reason, which was very difficult in those times. Now looking back, I think that part of the sort of a very weird response that you were referring to in Croatia, part of that, I think, comes from the feeling of guilt, because, it haunts them, I think. Mira was a person who lived with dignity. She had integrity. She stood for her beliefs, and she has shown courage. In times, very few people really, it was a minority of people who, because some of those who disagreed with the politics at the time chose to be silent. And silence from good people is not a good thing. And I think that, what she did and how she went through the last 30 years is an example of how people can survive, but then, also, she managed to recreate herself and become a wonderful presence here in the cultural life in the US as an actress, as an educator, as somebody who spoke out about the injustice. And she was teaching at the New York Film Academy, a course which she was trying, in her words, to teach her students, American students and Americans at large, about the dangers of fascism. But what she also said was that most importantly, she was trying to teach them and speak about anti-fascism, about the need to really stand up against authoritarian regimes, populism, nationalism. So she remained true to her ideals, remained true to what she was standing for 30 years ago. And for me, going back through down the memory lane, I remember the same things that she wrote about. And yes, I've known her personally here in LA, and she was our guest several times at the festival. She was on our jury. She was introducing filmmakers. We had talks about the issues that are still very much alive. And of course, she was very concerned about the turn of political events here and in Europe, where we all witness rise in populism and rise in populist politicians. So we kind of have like several PhDs in that, us who come from the region, we've gone through this. We've seen that how that develops and what kind of role the media plays in it. As a journalist by training, I always try to defend journalists, not to defend journalists, but, I stand with my colleagues because I know how hard it is, how terribly hard it is to, be on a deadline, deliver your copy on time, cover events, try to, give a balanced view of things. And it's hard to be good at your job, and it's hard to be a good journalist. And I think that, in this case, media in Yugoslavia at the time played an absolutely horrible role. It was absolutely awful. At a time when I was living in Belgrade, the national television was just unbelievably vicious in their coverage and the programs that they had. And so it was all over the place. There were just a few examples here and there that people who try to, stand that tide. And it's a lonely place to be, as Mira was in at a time. She was quite lonely in her fight because a lot of good people remained silent. And I think that, speaking about her here in the US, I absolutely admire what she has done in starting from zero, as we all do here when we come to the US. Nobody really cares what you did before. So you are, it's a clean slate. It's both good and bad, but she was able to translate her power of her as an artist into the roles that she made her own. And Ambassador Dallin in Babylon 5, and if you've seen a lot of tributes online and on YouTube, they're using really the parts of the from the TV series where she talks about goodbyes, and when she talks about language, and when she talks so really it's a funny thing in a way that an American writer who of Babylon 5 gave her the vehicle in that role, and which she totally made her own. You can't imagine anybody else being in that role. To say the words that resonate so well even today with us when we hear her in all of those tributes. And I went like you for the last several days. I was looking at whatever is out there and remembering, and and it just brought back really a flood of memories. And I think that in my last meeting with her, when we discussed a program that she ultimately decided not to participate in, because she really felt the need to be political. And it was, I think that we all have some form of PTSD because we went through this horrible time. And now, in the last few days, looking at the things online and seeing her talk and remembering my conversations with her, I think that, she, like me, we have this, you can't shed that from the past. We went through that horrible experience. We witnessed our people, we witnessed some people that we can never understand how they could have turned and become supporters of these horrible politicians and sign on for the types of things that are just unimaginable to us. And I think that stays with you. So it doesn't take long or much to remember and to get that. I guess that's what the definition of the PTSD, there are triggers, and it's so easy for that all of those memories come flooding back and bring me back to that time. And all I can say is that, and I hope that she felt that in some way by living here so far away, because we're here on the Pacific coast, it takes forever to get, when we travel back, that it gave us that necessary distance, but those memories stay with you. And as that wonderful writer, the late Bekim Serajnović said in his beautiful book, Nigdje ni otkuda, about that sense of nowhere, where we really are nowhere. We're here, we do our work, we try to do decent work, we try to do something that, as she did, so beautifully and so creatively in so many ways, as a writer, as an educator, as an actor, as a person who spoke out. I think this distance gives us a sense of, I won't say security, but it makes that memory more bearable, perhaps. But every time you read something, or something like this happens, and a person like Mira Furlan leaves us, I think it triggers that PTSD that we feel, that it's an emotion that you cannot get rid of. I don't think I will ever get rid of that for as long as I live. And that was the case with her too. But she was a person to be admired. I was very fortunate to know her. We met several times in Sarajevo at the film festival, which she attended, because of course she continued to be in the movies back there and all over the place. People really loved working with her, and it was always good to see her. And for me, Sarajevo, that's my hometown, Sarajevo, and in particular the Sarajevo Film Festival. I have to give them a shout. It's a great place that unites us and brings us all together, and I think that is the great quality that the Sarajevo Film Festival gave as a gift to all of us. So that's how I like to remember people like Mira Furlan as those who give us hope, courage, because looking at maybe the majority that goes with the tide, whatever, like is in vogue, or when a lot of people are just opportunists who try to take advantage of, the political situations. We have to look at individuals like Mira Furlan. And that's what I think the meaning of Mira Furlan, as you so aptly named this program, the meaning of Mira Furlan for us and for me is that, yes, it is a thing to do. You have to stand up. You have to stand up for what you believe in. You have to stay true to who you are and who you think, and you have to speak out through your work, through your writing, through what you try to do, and connect with other people, which is why I think this type of connection that we have this morning with so many people is very important, because then you say, I am not really alone. Maybe there are many bad things out there happening, but I am not alone. And there are some people that understand where I'm coming from, and sharing that, sense of justice, I guess. And there is justice in this aftermath of Mira's passing, that so many people are just, and the more they try to sort of like those that you mentioned with their apologies, that were, they were not really apologies. No matter what they do, it just doesn't work. And they just dig themselves deeper and deeper in the hole. And that's where they need to be, in that hole. Because in history, that's where they will remain. She will just become bigger with time, and they will be smaller and smaller. And you know, and that's what they deserve. So in a way, you have to live long, as I have, to see them, you know, like go where, you know, and ultimately disappear. But it's just imagine how hard it was for a public figure like Mira Furlan. She was a young woman at the time. She married Goran. It was that, you know, time when you really, and she was just such a wonderful actress, and you know, should have been on stage and all over, you know, the region, and she would have been. And to have your career cut short at that time through such a vicious campaign, just imagine how that must have been for her. And to get the strength to overcome that, come to the US, start from zero again, and then remake herself into this wonderful icon that we now see. I don't like to use the word icon, but for the lack of a better, you know, you would forgive me. It's just astounding what she has achieved. So her achievement as an actor, as an artist, are just something that we have to celebrate and, you know, use as an inspiration and motivation to say, look, she did that. It's possible to do this. It's possible to pick yourself up and to, you know, still continue to give a gift of something beautiful to your audiences and to people out there. And I will just close with an anecdote that the father of a good Bosnian friend of mine from Sarajevo, Dida Mesud, one time called me to say that he read one of her columns, and he said, I just want to say to Mira, bravo, Mira. And I wrote to her and I said, well, you know, you don't know him, you know, he's in his 90s, but here's Dida Mesud, who just, you know, like people read what she was writing about. And that made her day, really. She was just, you know, I won't, it's not just happy, but she was, you know, she cried when she heard that. And it's a, you know, so she meant a lot to a lot of people, and she will continue to mean, and certainly to me. I know what she went through and remember that time really very well. That memory stays with me, and that's one of the reasons that I started SSEES as a place, as I like to call it, as an open tent where everybody's welcome, but perhaps not everybody. Some people need to be excluded, you know. Anyway, I will close with this, and I thank you again for this opportunity that we all remember a wonderful person, and she will just continue to be a bigger, and they will get smaller as they deserve. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, thanks. Thanks so much, Vera. I think one of the good things that happens in this discussion is that is that events that are triggers for sadness and other things also become moments to turn back to happy memories and happy thoughts and thoughts of inclusion and sometimes exclusion. But let's continue, and let's ask Sanjin to take over. Thanks very much, Vera.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Eric, for putting up this panel, and thank you, Vera, for this beautiful introduction to Mira Furlan. A lot has been said about Mira for the last few weeks, and a lot has been said about her as a Yugoslav film star, as a post-Yugoslav international TV star. Of course, a lot has been said on her activism, or in a way, lack of nationalist activism in the beginning of the 90s. And I wanted just to state a few things there. As I said, a lot of beautiful text has been written. I mean, Mima Simić wrote a beautiful piece talking about her personal experiences with Mira, and Dijana Jelac, a Bosnian American film scholar, wrote great piece in Buka Portal just the other day about Mira Furlan's Yugoslav roles, film roles, and how, I mean, both in how she was perceived in a very stereotypical way, either as a Madonna symbol or as a whore, as a prostitute, and she tried to nuance those. Roles and try to give other explanations to how we perceive them. I wanted to just add a few things to this. When I started thinking about this, I don't have, so I just met Mira once briefly in actually celebrating her birthday in Vladan Desnica's house outside Zadar in 2012, and it was in a way very, very, very interesting experience, singing Hey Slaveni at 3 a.m. outside Zadar, which was kind of contested in those days. I was invited by a good friend Damir Imamović, and this was the summer school of writing school, and I suppose a way of meeting in a way. So I don't have that much to say, unfortunately, about her as a person, but I wanted still to think about her words, of what she actually wrote and said, because as I mentioned, and as both Eric and Vera mentioned, she is being perceived as a symbol. She's being perceived as an icon. And when you read her, when you read some of the interviews from both from the 80s and the 90s and 2000s, you can clearly see that she was not comfortable with that. She didn't want to be perceived as symbol of anything. She wanted to be perceived as Mira Furlan. And there's this, of course, hugely popular letter that she wrote to Danas back in 91, when she was kicked out of work, and when the Croatian state took her apartment. And Boris Dežulović wrote a great text the other day, saying actually that this letter might have been written in 91 or 98 or 2008 or 2020. Croatia and the whole region haven't changed that much in those last 3 decades, meaning that nationalisms in the region are still there and are very stable. And as you, Eric, mentioned, there is this kind of really apology being simply non-apology, and we can see that in different contexts where people are still trying to minimize their own role in this whole scandal, in this whole mess, and also trying to blame it on those times. I read actually Denis Kuljić's blog when he was still alive, obviously, when he went through the whole scandal with Furlan, going through all those 3 texts, trying to give a comment on them. And appallingly, from what I could read, he couldn't see that anything was wrong in those texts. Those, highly problematic anti-Semitic accusations of her being a light woman, whatever that means. So I'm not sure what we, and when I say we, I mean the whole region, what if we learned anything from her death, or from Mira Furlan being a symbol of anything, of Yugoslavism, of individualism, the fact is, the day she died, Croatian Public Service screened Cyclop, directed by Antun Vrdoljak. When they, of course, could have chosen some other film, they could have chose to screen Rajko Grlić's Za sreću je potrebno troje, of course, where the script was written by certain Dubravka Ugrešić, which could be I don't know, a symbol for a symbolic turn in how we view the past, but not I mean, I suppose that Croatian Public Service thought that it would be better to show a film directed by a man who once stated that HRT would be a cathedral for Croatian soul, cleansing the whole public service house from Serbs and other unwanted cooperators. So I'm not really sure if we are to learn something about it. So I went and read some of her interviews and letters, and of course this infamous letter that she wrote to Danas in '91. But there was another comment that I thought was really interesting. She wrote short letter also to Danas. Why do I play? Zašto igram? And then she wrote something that why is she still playing the theater plays in Belgrade while the war is going on in Zagreb? And she is stating here that not all people in Belgrade are cheering the tanks and throwing kisses at soldiers attacking Dubrovnik and Croatia. So just in that short sentence, we see that she's of course aware of what is going on in Croatia. She is aware of the wars, and she is aware of the fact that the tanks are traveling from Belgrade to Zagreb. But that wasn't enough. And it seems that it would never be enough, because, I mean, she wanted to stay nuanced and didn't want to in any way identify with a nation, but with the people, which was also kind of, I don't know, it was interesting to read those interviews from the 80s where she stated that she didn't enjoy films, but she enjoyed cooperating with people. So this is something that really got me in a way, because she was, of course, a phenomenal actor, and I mean, with highly acknowledged careers in both theater and film and TV. But this was really paradigmatic in a way, that she always highlighted people working with her, and not films, and not work in that way. So that was one part of what I found really interesting. We are hearing a lot of talking of Mira Furlan, but for me it was important to listen and read to what she actually said and claimed, both about the conflicts and about the past and everything. And then I thought that it would be appropriate to see a few of those post-Yugoslav films that she made after the break of the country. And what I saw there, mainly looking at Danis Tanovic's Circus Columbia and Goran Markovic's The Tour, was in a way the intertextuality of those roles, because she didn't play in a lot of post-Yugoslav films. And I think that it was something that she was very conscious about. What I saw there was, in a way, an intertextual comment to her whole career, I would say. Maybe I'm exaggerating, I'm not sure. But if we are looking at Tanović, Circus Columbia, based, of course, on Ivica Đikić's great book, she's co-starring with Miki Manojlović, with whom she played so many roles during the Yugoslav times. And the whole film, I would say, is something that one could characterize as a Yugoslav film made after Yugoslavian breakdown, because it's about fathers, absent fathers, in a way representing the country and the tyrants. There is the whole talk about the house, who will inherit the house, and this intertextual typecasting of her and Miki Manojlović as once lovers gave a very melancholic portrait to both their careers and a country that no longer was. And in a certain way, we can see that, of course, we can see that as well in Goran Markovic's film, where she actually plays this Croat actress in Belgrade. It's a road film. I'm not sure if you've all seen it, but it's about a Serbian group of theater actors going on a road trying to act for Serbian troops during the Bosnian War in 1993. And in a particular scene, they're meeting. They're lost somewhere, and they met this group of Croatian soldiers, and Mira Furlan sees this opportunity as a way of rescuing the whole group by trying to act Dundomare, of course, shifting her identity in order to try all of her co-actors. So in a way, there is a kind of intertextual dialogue with her own career, and her, of course, being an absent person in the series Vratiće se rode. So for me, it was really appalling to see both her own words trying to not be perceived as a symbol, and then after the Yugoslav breakdown, how she, in a way, commented her own career and the state of the country through these films. So I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
Oh, thanks very much, Sanjin. So much to think about, and so many films to rewatch. Let me just say, at one point in his presentation, Sanjin mentioned an article by Diana Jelača, which is a great article. It really makes me wish that I had invited her for this panel. But while he was talking, Amir Husak, hi Amir, glad you're here, posted in the chat on the side here a link to that article. So anybody who wants to read it can follow that link and read it. Hopefully not while our next presenter, Sara Renar, is speaking. Oh, Sara, thanks very much for coming, and over to you.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. Can you guys hear me? Okay, so as the third speaker, I'm inevitably going to say some things again. But first of all, I have to say that when I got the call from you, Eric, I was at first a bit reluctant to speak because I'm neither a film critic, I'm not an academic scholar or a film industry professional, and nor was I lucky enough to meet Mira Furlan in person. However, as a performing artist and as a woman in the performing arts field in the Balkans, I guess a lot of issues that Mira has lived through and spoken about strongly resonate with me. So I will try to be short and on point. So as it was said many times in the past few weeks in the press and media here in Croatia and also here in this panel, Mira was the ideal scapegoat in the 90s chaos here. For most of the crazed general public, her sin was kind of 3 times heavy. She was an actress, she was a woman, and she wanted peace. She has played roles, and this also, Sanjin said really good that, and so the roles at the time she was had this kind of dichotomy. So either you were a Madonna saint mother, or you are kind of poor fallen woman sinner, right? But she managed to kind of challenge that position, and she played roles that had, in this sense, really made a deep impact on the society at the time. And she was not merely a pretty face, and she valued ideas that transcend national or ethnical divisions. I also at this point have to say what is the position, what at least in my experience is the position of performing arts, and how the general public, there is one, can perceives art. Art is not perceived necessarily, and in the Corona times here, this has become very, very evident, is not necessarily perceived as legitimate work. So performing arts are not perceived as legitimate work, and a woman who, God forbid, plays with her sexuality, gives a strong opinion, or is simply not just quietly smiling, is heavily scrutinized. Along with her not complying with the general politics of the time, this is something the public ultimately did not forgive, and this ultimately, as was said here many times, resulted in her leaving the country. Also, a huge problem was not only the masses that are screaming, but the good people, as Vera said, the good people that are silent. However, the problem of misogyny, I'm sorry about my English, and normalizing violence towards women, double standards in professional and private life, and the hatred and the fear of the other is not only a Balkan problem. And I think that the way Mira addressed this and other issues in the film industry and society in general is something that is truly, truly inspiring. And as a woman under the spotlight in a similar field of work, I really find her words guiding and comforting. I strongly believe that Mira's and that all our individual and collective struggles towards a more humane, empathic, and open society are not in vain. And I know a lot has been said here, and a lot has been said here that gives us maybe an opposite impression, especially the way that Mira's death was treated by this apology in the press. But however, I still feel optimistic. We are not yet close to sorting out the centuries of the oppression of patriarchy, nor are we close to resolving nationalistic issues, but there is really hope. And I can feel, you can call me young and naive, but I can really feel the difference in the past 10 years here in Croatia. Sexist behavior is definitely not acceptable the way it used to be a decade ago. Society has opened up to women who speak about these issues. Various platforms are now empowering and encouraging women to speak up in a safe environment. Young people in general seem much more aware of the issue. In my personal experience, again, this is the only experience that I have, also a lot of men are aware and open to discussion. And so all this together really gives reasons to be optimistic. I know that there's a long way to go. However, the Me Too movement, the discussion that is now going on, that started in Serbia and has now crossed the border about sexual abuse that was going on in universities, is women are opening up, and it really gives a kind of sense of hope that things are being dealt with. So what I wanted to say here is that strong role models for these good changes in society to happen are the key, and strong role models that change the dominant society discourse are really, really necessary. So you have young people to look that can look up to, and I think Mira Furlan's legacy is definitely showing that a different way is possible. more women are getting much more active roles in acting. Women are in the music industry. For example, women were generally perceived as only a singer and a pretty face. We now have girls that are producing, girls that are playing various instruments. And I think even if we're, again, I'm talking about this general public, I think even in that sense, this is not anymore something that people are surprised about, let's say in that way. And so to wrap things up, I deeply admire Mira Furlan's braveness to start her career all over again, her humbleness, and her beautiful way of discussing all these issues that we all addressed here. She had every reason to be bitter, but as far as all the interviews I've seen and read, she was the opposite. She was not nostalgic. She spoke up. She remained with her artistic and personal dignity and integrity towards the very end. And she had this beautiful, optimistic view on life. So if you ask me, and another thing also, which I didn't think about earlier and which Eric said good, or which Eric pointed out, she was really a bridge, because when I'm touring and when I'm especially abroad region, there's always this problem of how the Balkans, how this region is represented in the rest of the world. And one ways of dealing with this, which is deeply problematic if you ask me, is this Bregović-Kusturica way of exploiting the stereotypes. And Mira was beyond this. Mira was indeed a bridge. And this and because we hear in this region, we're kind of not exotic enough to be labeled ethno or world music when I'm talking about music, and we're not wealthy enough to be considered the West, right? And so I think Mira's role here was really a connecting one. And so if you ask me, in this elementary school essay writing, what about whom person I would write about as a role model, Mira would be on top of the list.
Okay. Oh, this is great. Thanks so much. And what's really important here is that I think, especially, all of us have talked in one way or another about the campaign that was led against her and the sort of half-hearted apologies that were offered for it. And it's very easy to think about Mira Furlan as a victim of nationalism, and I think there's something really reductive and insulting about labeling a person as a victim, and that it's really nice to have highlighted this this way that that she was also a really transformative and inspiring figure. So thanks, Sara, and thanks to all of you. And we now have time, and because the moderator maintained iron discipline, we have a lot of time for discussion. So anybody who has a question, do you have that little hand raising function thing on your screens? If you do that, I can make a note of it, or you can tell me in the chat that you would like to make a question or comment. And I think, should we perhaps try to gather up 3 or 4 and then go around to the panelists and ask for responses? Is that all right? Yes. Okay. Oh, and people are welcome if they want to turn on their cameras now. It might be nice for us to see who we're talking to. If there's anybody who doesn't want to turn on their camera, of course, they don't have to. Oh, there's Paul. Hi, Paul. Do we have the little hand raising thing here, or do we have to use chat? people can also wave their hand in front of the camera, but the problem is that I can only see, I think, something like 20 people at a time. So if you're not one of those 20, I can't see you.
I think hand raising is under reactions.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Claudia. Yeah. So at the bottom of the screen, there are a bunch of categories of responses, and one of them is reactions. And I guess is that first one a raised hand? It looks more like an injured thumb. Maybe I can start off by asking the panelists just very simply, everybody's starting point, or most people's starting point in talking about Mira Furlan is this period of 1990-91, a time when emotions and particularly bad emotions were very high. And I'm wondering if I could ask people how you see the atmosphere changing since then. I know it's a very large question.
I think we've already, if I may just, I think we've already all said, answered that question. Not too many changes. And unfortunately, it seems like the Balkan virus is spreading to other countries. So it's a global phenomenon, I think, and maybe deserving of another panel. I just don't, it's maybe the little bit of a historical distance gives people an opportunity to see things from a vintage point. And so we have, especially in movies, we have wonderful documentaries and features, of course, but documentaries especially, that speak about that time, that show the archival footage and then put it into a context for international audiences. And the film that comes to mind, and really a brilliant documentary film, is The Other Side of Everything by Mira Furlan from Belgrade and Paris. She lives in France, and she has recently been invited to join the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. So she's still a very young filmmaker, so that tells you about the stature that she already has. So that film is almost like a textbook for what happened, but also about who were the people and what they were going through, who had the courage and the integrity to stand up for what was right at a time, and still is, like Srbijanka Turajlić, who was one of the great leaders of the opposition, who also lost her job and who also was a target of a vicious campaign. So it's, I think that we, in movies and that are made today, I think we can see what happened and analyze that. Hopefully some people can draw lessons from it. I don't live in the region. I really go just for a few days every year to visit. So that's not enough. I'm not an expert, and I don't want to, say things that I don't know about. But I'm through the movies, I travel to the region every year, and they give me a window to see what is going on now. But it's very difficult. It really is very difficult. It's not so much perhaps today about just nationalism, but pervasive corruption. So that's what I will offer for right now.
Okay, thanks very much. And see, Sven Mijojlić has typed a comment, but maybe Sven, could I invite you to share it verbally if you want to?
Yeah. Can
Oh,
you hear
thank
me?
you. Hi. Yes. Hello.
Hello, just a sec.
There you are. Howdy.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as I wrote, I'm actually personally glad that this, while let's say neo-fascism from the 90s, but still present today, find a very let's say fruitful platform, in that sense that this was explicitly mentioned in the Globus reportage about Mira Furlan, which is really close to sheer neo-Nazism. Because I'm glad, because this is the language that everybody can understand across the world, and then will maybe be kind of this issue which we are still battling after 30 years will be kind of more, it will be understood by the wider audience of people, because for almost 30 years we're all repeating the same things to each other, and it doesn't make any sense unless it's heard by larger masses in that sense. So that's just a short comment. I've listened to you all, to the panel, and there were some really encouraging words, and I'm actually kind of feeling a bit better after hearing some of the panelists. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. And yeah, for people who don't know, Sven is a very active journalist who's writing and publishing extensively on disputes over especially public memory in Croatia, and is currently also doing a doctorate under the supervision of some of the most charming people in Ireland. Do any of the panelists want to respond? Yes, Sanjin.
Yeah, just a short comment on this. What if, in case anything changed for the last 30 years? There's a great book written by Christian Axpo Nielsen in Danish, though, but well, you can learn Danish pretty quickly. It's just like Swedish, but with a lot of meatballs in your mouth. And the title of the book is "We Never Thought It Could Happen Here," and this is something that is being very often is being said, not only by the people escaping the wars, but I mean even the what we can perceive as cultural elites. And there is, I'll turn again to Furlan's quotes, and it's like this is something from Federal Tribune back in the '98, and she says, my greatest mistake, and what I feel most guilty about it, is that I was overcome by the events. They surprised me. I was completely unprepared. When I look now at the development of pre-war events, I see how we have been deaf and blind, as if we didn't want to see the whole horror and the seriousness of the situation. I consider myself guilty for that naive optimism and blindness. I should have known, I should have seen. I lived in an illusion, in lies, as we have seen afterwards. There's a lot of great academics here. I would really like to hear a comment about this, because when you go back to the archives, as a lot of you people do, it's quite obvious what is happening in the late 80s and the early 90s, and there are a bunch of books being written on that, how of course the whole conflict was in a way uncontrollable from 87, 88, 89, and still there is this way of thinking that a lot of people that perceive themselves as Yugoslavs felt, I would say, my parents and a lot of Bosnians that really, I don't know if they didn't want to see this or if they genuinely didn't think that the war would start. And this is something that she wrote in a way, I mean, that she spoke about in a way as her own critique of her own thinking and mindset. But it is quite appalling to think that so many people really didn't see the possibility or the risk of conflicts emerging there in the beginning of the 90s.
May I say something as the youngest panelist here?
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah. I think 2020 is always hindsight. And it's so of course all of you can share a much more academic opinion on this, and you obviously lived through the times. I was born in 1987, but I remember having this discussion with my parents. Like, how couldn't you see these things happening? Exactly because of all you mentioned before, and also in economic terms with this huge inflation going on, and you have to buy Deutschmarks in order that your paycheck is worthless in 2 days otherwise, and so on. And I was, how did you not see that thing falling apart? And I couldn't get a straight answer, which made me think that the way you perceive reality, you can, I think one rarely sees what's exactly in front of you. That's what I want to say. And I think when you're young, I mean, you know, all that was being said here now, I'm collaborating with a huge number of musicians and artists from Serbia and Bosnia and from Slovenia. I'm not obviously in the last year, but mostly online, but and I can, for me, I can totally understand someone like Mira not seeing that this is going to happen, because I'm living this world where we are collaborating, and I am aware that these are pink glasses, and that when I open my own social media, that those are the other 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 people that think alike, and then that there's this whole world outside that votes for the people and for the options that they vote and so on. But still, but what the point is that in order to live and work, you're paralyzed if you are paranoid all the time, I guess. That was just a short comment.
Thanks. And without meaning to put Sara on the spot here, you know, I was going to ask you a question when right when this theme got raised, you know, why didn't she see it? Why didn't she warn people? I wanted to ask you a question about the responsibility of artists. And then I remembered a line from one of your recent songs. Kažu, zlo se ne može spriječiti, je li onda zločin uvijek mislit na sebe? Which I encounter that, and I think, I don't know, I mean, I'm not a moral philosopher. Is this an expression of selfishness, or is it also invoking an obligation for people to protect and think about themselves under conditions that militate against it?
Well, I mean, you answered it yourself. The line that you said is, should I translate this at this point?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so they say evil cannot be prevented. Is it evil then to think only of yourself? So this is taken from the song Medea, and basically I did the lyrics of the song with playing, all of these are paraphrases of mostly paraphrases of the Euripid tragedy. So this one is from the Greek original as well. Yes, this is absolutely something that I want people to think about. And, I think I mean, you kind of put me in this position to moralize here. I think yes, I think it is a sin to think only of yourself. Yes, I do. However, I also think that you cannot live your day-to-day life with seeing the whole picture all the time. And I'm not being apologetic of anybody falling for a certain regime. I'm apologetic for people that have hope and that think that things can be different.
Okay, thanks very much. And let's what I'm going to do, if the showing hands is working, I'm not seeing it, but we have several things in the comments, and what I'd like to do is just ask people who've put things in the comments to verbalize them a bit, and perhaps to start with Nela Mijojlić. Hi Nela, how are you? Are you still here, Nela?
Hi, yeah, but
there you are. Hi.
I just placed the comment, so I don't need to say anything.
Yes.
It doesn't come with any kind of a scholarly background, so I really don't think that it has any value. It's just a personal observation.
Okay, that's that's fine. Nela is, by the way, a great media scholar and artist. But maybe I can turn to Mijojlić.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Hello from Hawaii. You wouldn't believe it.
Wow.
Yeah. Don't ask me how I ended up here. No, what I really want. I mean, like, I was. Whenever Mira and I talked, she was.
Hello,
really,
Mima.
Hi everybody. Oh, hi Mayo. Maya and I are the Mira gang. We used to drink a lot by the pool, the three of us. So this is a little confession. No, I mean, Mira's whole mission in her teaching career, what Vera spoke about earlier was talking about fascism, because all these things are faces of fascism. And what I wrote in my comment is actually, you know, talking about the Balkan region or the post-Yugoslav region, and is like, oh, what has changed and what has not changed. It's not the right question to ask. The question is the global face of fascism that's really being on the rise all over. And especially, I mean, if you look at the US, I think it's just as bad as any war that we had. And I mean, it's on the verge of war all the time. So I think maybe, you know, it's time to stop exoticizing the Balkans and see the Balkan, quote unquote, the Balkan in the US. And that was Mira's great, as I said, mission and great concern. And she was really, really freaking out, because in a way, leaving the Balkan region in the war to step into another kind of fascism, even within Hollywood, was probably, you know, just as terribly sobering to her and to all of us in a way. So yeah, that was my 5 cents, maybe 2.5.
Okay, thanks very much. And let's get contributions now. First from Vesna Golic and then from Ana Devic.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I just wrote in the comment back to that discussion that we had a minute ago about why is it that people like Mira Furlan couldn't see what was going to happen. And my answer was because that wasn't the only option. What happened in '91 was the winning option, but it wasn't the only option. Yugoslavism in the form that Mira Furlan was representing, in the form of understanding the region as a space, cultural and physical space where we could live together and cooperate and progress, was something that had a potential of transforming itself by solving problems in other ways than in the way in which we solved it. And what Sara is talking about current cooperation between people actually talks about that potential that couldn't get enough support to survive, and then we dissolved in disaster and in where we are today. And Mira, in her interview in 2008, she says that she represented something that had to be canceled, that had to be finished, ended. And that's why, as a person, as a personification of that thing that had to be canceled, she was an easy target. And she was such a, you know, like symbol of things that were happening. Propaganda went after her. And we really, as Mrs. Mijojlić said, we really lived under awful propaganda. And as Mira Furlan said, the propaganda actually helped the project of '91 to succeed, did a very, very good job.
Okay, thanks very much. And Ana Devic?
Hello,
Ah, there.
everyone. Hi. Just again, in response to what Sanjin asked and to complement what the previous participants said, I wanted to sociologize a bit this picture of who saw what and who could not see things. So it is not about what Mira Furlan and artists or other people could not see, but it is also about the realities, the social realities that people were living in. They were not necessarily the same. So this is to say that just as Mira and many other people lived in a space in which cooperation, both professional and personal, was completely feasible, this of course created a type of Yugoslav reality in which conflicts and especially nationalist tensions were not parts of everyday reality. And this is why it was not something that was part of their living experience. And like everywhere else, people react also politically as coming from a certain perception that is connected to their own experience. It was not there as part of what they represented, what people who are in their professional and personal milieu, in the milieu of their popular culture, because Mira, for example, like many other people in that sphere, was active also in the music sphere and in the sphere of kind of daily popular cultural exchange. And so this type of conflictual environment did not have its good home there. Another important part of the answer to the question is that at the time, just like in any country that is ridden with social and political conflicts, these conflicts can be resolved in many different ways. And this is also going back to what Vesna Golić was saying. I live already for several years in a country, which is Belgium, that is completely dysfunctional political place. And nevertheless, there is absolutely no venue that could be pursued by anyone that would lead to nationalist violence. In other words, this is a place which is much more nationalistic than former Yugoslavia was in terms of daily life, in terms of even administrative life. My workplace, which is 20 kilometers from the place where I live, is a different political and administrative reality in Belgium. But to understand things in sociological and political terms means to understand that conflicts, even the worst perception, like someone is writing here in the chat, that many people saw all darkness, the clouds coming down in Yugoslavia. And obviously, especially in economic terms, many people saw also the economic conflicts going to the level of political elites. And all this looked very gloomy, but it doesn't mean that it was part of ordinary people's touchable reality that they could predict nationalist violence in terms of its mobilization. It is just infeasible to understand from the point of view of ordinary people, artists included. Thanks.
Okay, Anna, don't go away yet, because I thought you were going to say something about powerlessness. Why don't you say something about powerlessness?
Well, I mean, I think that there are at least 150 people participating, and I just think it's a little bit awful to take so much time. But okay, since you're now provoked me, I will try to be I'll try to be very brief. So when I said that from the point of view of people's reality that is experienced in full on a daily level, in what was Yugoslavia, in fact, people did have a perception of dark reality, but usually, but not in a way that it is usually perceived in the aftermath, and that is that people were aware of nationalist tensions and just were afraid to express it or to do something about it. On the level of their personal lives, especially in the sphere of work or the lack of work, in the sphere of availability of certain consumer goods, in terms of the perception of their falling living standards, according to a lot of sociological research, and there's plenty of sociological and anthropological work done throughout the 80s and earlier, one could see that during the span of 20 years, in fact, quite a growing number of people were expressing something which one should call powerlessness, and that is the inability to turn their perception of dissatisfaction, grievance, into something that would be mobilization in social and political terms. So, okay, fine, Eric.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for thank you for rising to my provocation. Would the panelists like to respond?
Okay.
Yeah, Vera. Your microphone's not on.
Okay, hold on. I think that, because I remember very well the mid 80s and in 1987 when Mijojlić came to power. So I was in the streets of Belgrade for 5 years. There were quite a few people, but there was no, the nationalist stream, so to speak, was the most powerful. And, with the exception of Vreme, the magazine that we all were reading at a time and, taking the front page and just posting it all over town, you kind of saw, not kind of, but you saw what was happening. But I think we refused to believe that the ultimate result of this would be really the actual physical war. I just had, I was, saying to myself, well, how can they do this? Like here, because, this is a very narrow street, what are you going to do? And their neighbors, and this is, in Sarajevo, no, it will never happen. It's that maybe it's a wishful thinking, maybe we are deluding ourselves, but you don't want to believe that, you want to believe in the human capacity to overcome adversity rather than to succumb to, the lowest, impulses to go out there and kill other people. So I think we refused, at least I would like to believe that, a lot of people acted in a way, we were, non-militant protesters. And little did we know, that we were, and ended up being really powerless in face of, the tanks and guns and landmines. But, we saw that something bad was going on. It was very obvious. And, there were a lot of people out there, but we were just overpowered by a tide of nationalism from all sides in all parts of the country. And that was something that we carry with us until today. We have to contend with that. And I think it's really important to keep analyzing that, to keep writing about it, and I believe that artists speak most eloquently because they speak from the place of emotion and personal experience through their books and movies, and help us to overcome this, and hopefully that, that the things won't be repeated. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And other panelists? Do either of you feel like responding? No, okay. Well, look, I mean, we're at the point now. If we stick to the timetable, we've got 5 minutes left. Can I ask panelists if they are inspired to give us any final or closing remarks or thoughts to give them?
just a brief comment. It's really unfortunate that we need to have a reason to go back and look at some of the works that certain people have made. For me, it has been obvious that I haven't seen so many Furlan films in so many years. So in a way, this tragic, this very tragic event have led to me re-evaluating her work in a way, going back, trying to see some of the films, her books, texts, some of the interviews on YouTube from a different perspective. And even though this has been something that was well known for 30 years, it gave a perspective, just trying to understand her position as someone who always resisted to be looked upon as a symbol for a whole group of people. And this was it's really valuable. It has been valuable for me to go back and to see all those great films. And there is this Yugo-nostalgic connotation, of course, to her work. But at the same time, when you look at her roles and at those films that were made in the 80s, you see that those are critical films. Otac na službenom putu and Lepota poroka and Za sreću je potrebno troje, those classics of Yugo cinema that we perceive in a way, in a kind of semi-nostalgic way, those films were also critical of the state of things in the former Yugoslavia as well. So it's really hard to grasp Furlan and few of her colleagues that always wanted to escape this trap of being caught upon this identity politics. So in a way, this gave me the opportunity of going back, Štefica Cvek, thank you, Anna. Štefica Cvek, to, of course. So many highly critical films. So it's not just perceiving Mira as being anti-nationalist or being that, or she was, it seems to me now, at least, that even in her Yugoslav roles, she wanted to deconstruct, to ask questions, to, I don't know, in a way, nuance both her own identity maybe, but how people perceived her. So that was, yeah.
Okay.
That would be my last comment. Thank you so much, Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Sanjin.
And thank you to all the panelists.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that your comment brings to mind is the thought that although we imagine that we live submerged in memory, we're not submerged in it. What happens instead is that we occasionally collide with it, and it sort of dents us in a different spot each time. Sara, Vera, do you want to offer any final words?
I can say also, as a comment to what both Vera and Sanjin were saying. You can hear me? You can.
Yes.
Yes, I do. I mean, you can call me an idealist, but I do really strongly believe that it is an artist's duty to do as everything that is in your power to prevent these things from happening that happened to me. And I have to admit that before. That only after her death and with all the texts resurfacing have I become that much aware of what terrible injustice was done to her. And I really, really sincerely hope that we will learn something from the past on this.
Okay, thanks. And Vera, do you?
Well, I think that Mira probably would love to be remembered most for her artistic work. And she was just a fabulous actress. She was wonderful, whatever she did. And even, you know, in the last several years when she was in several short films and working with young filmmakers, she was just this wonderful presence. You know how they say you have several people, you know, in the frame, and then all you see is her, because she had that power. And it's something that stays, and her roles, and she, you know, will live with us through her work on screen. And what I think it is, if we go back and watch all these old movies, or the, you know, more recent ones, she was just this wonderful, wonderful actress. And I'd like to remember that, because that trumps everything else. And add to that, you know, this courage that she possessed, and dignity and integrity, whatever she did and how she conducted herself living here and working with Hollywood. She was very much loved and appreciated. I think it turned out to be a wonderful thing how much she was appreciated here in the US. Her colleagues and the tribute that they gave her. I just was watching last night a tribute from her colleagues from Babylon 5. And it's such a beautiful memorial on YouTube. And you say, well, how wonderful it is. Here they are. You know, she came here in the second half of her life, and they really recognized the value and artistry of this woman. And so I think that that's a great memory that will stay with us, and we will be able to go back to this. And she's an inspiration, I hope, for young artists, filmmakers, and for young women and young actors, both male and female, that you can reinvent yourself, that there is no end to anything, and that you stick to your guns, proverbial guns, or your artistic guns, and you keep, through your work, you really speak more than through anything else. You know, it's your work, it's who you are. And she was really brilliant at that. So I'm so glad that we can continue to watch her work on screen, and we're luckier for that. So yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for my colleagues.
Yes, and thanks to all of you. Thanks to our panelists, Vera Mijojlić, Sanjin Pejković, and Sara Renar. Thank you to everybody who came. I think this was a beautiful discussion. I really hope that we did some kind of justice for Mira Furlan in remembering her this way. I say, I'll draw people's attention. There's a small debate going on in the chat between Ines Shabalic and Boyan Alexov on the things that we are demonizing and the things that we are sanctifying, as we remember ways in which people were demonized and things were sanctified in the past. So let me perhaps add as a way of closing that I think, in addition to hoping that we do justice to the memory of Mira Furlan, I hope that we also do justice in all of the demonizing and all of the sanctifying that we do in the time that comes. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so very much. I think this was beautiful. Thank you.